Welcome to the Daily Boogie.
Oh yes,
Good
and the
evening.
Christian
We begin
privilege,
tonight
of course.
Keeping them honest with what President Trump did on
Keeping them honest with Anderson Cooper. I'm intrigued already.
his Easter vacation. In short, he tweeted, and it's being seen as a reflection of the company he's been keeping lately, who is in his ear and who is not. So after a weekend at Mar-a-Lago with Fox's
yes,
Sean Hannity and
transphobic
Jimmy
as
Pirro,
well. They're transphobic, they're Nazi, they're bigoted, they're racist, they're white supremacist. They can't wait to get into America so they can start kicking ass in the Middle East, apparently. That's why they're going there. Remember, the guy on Tucker Carlson said the reason you need to let these people in is because of American foreign policy in places like Iraq. One can only assume that they're going to walk across the border, head straight to their local register office, sign up for the military so they can get over to Iraq and carry on the good fight that they want to be a part of, obviously.
Fox executive Bill Shine, immigration hardliner
Shine.
Stephen Miller, and oddly enough, boxing promoter Don King. He had plenty to tweet about. Attacking the news media, except for Fox News, and Sinclair Broadcast Group, the big local broadcasting chain whose anchors nationwide read a statement attacking fake stories which the president endorsed. He also attacked Amazon and his own Justice Department, putting the word justice in scare quotes. He attacked Democrats for not wanting...
He put the word justice in scare quotes. So last week it was Brian Stelter with rage tweeting. This week, Anderson Cooper coins a new phrase, scare quotes.
Any border between the U.S.
Turn
and
him
Mexico,
off. I drop
in his
an IQ
opinion.
point
He
every
attacked
time I
Mexico
see
for
him,
not
says
enforcing
Otto.
its own immigration laws. And most notably, he also issued a string of tweets on the hundreds of thousands of young people known as DACA kids, the ones whose future, you'll remember, was thrown in doubt by action he himself took back in September when he rescinded the program protecting them.
Yes,
now, since then, he's promised to deal with these so-called dreamers with, quote, great heart, in his words, and said this back in early January.
Remember, you couldn't rescind DACA because all of these people would be, all of these children, ladies and gentlemen, would be dragged out of the schools while they were studying to become doctors. Do you remember that? The ICE agents would kick down the doors of the schools and drag out all of these children, and they would rip their mothers away and send them back to the hellholes that they came from, and the children would be lost wandering the streets. It would end democracy as we know it. The American system would collapse in on itself as soon as DACA was rescinded. Now that it suits us, we're like, DACA's been rescinded and nothing changes. Like we told you all along, you are getting sleepy. You are getting sleepy. Borders are racist. Trump had a Twitter tirade. He was triggered. We're keeping them honest.
January about new legislation on immigration.
There should be a bill of love.
Bill of love.
Truly, it should be a bill of love, and we can do that.
Bill of love.
Well, in the 3 months that followed, though, the president has sought to tie legislation on their fate to funding the border wall and restrictions even on lawful
bill of
immigration.
love. It's a bill of love of fascism, of course.
In other words, the president has been kind of all over the map on this one. Right now, it seems he's in a very hardline place. He began with a tweet just yesterday morning. Border Patrol agents are not allowed to properly do their jobs at the border because of ridiculous liberal Democrat laws like catch and release. Getting more dangerous. Caravans coming. Republicans must go to nuclear option to pass tough laws now. No more DACA deal. Now, in fairness, that was his second, not his first tweet of the day. The first one simply said,
What triggered Twitter tirade? There are no people coming over the border. There is nothing but desert there and rednecks. There is no threat to national sovereignty. Your border security is secured. Donald Trump was triggered by Sean Hannity.
Happy Easter. In any event, that one DACA tweet has a lot to unravel and some terms you might not be familiar with. First, keeping them honest, catch and release is not actually a law, Democrat or Republican. It's a practice, a controversial one, of releasing non-criminal undocumented immigrants on their own recognizance, in part due to a lack of detention facilities In part, the White House claims due to immigration law loopholes.
The reason we release people who are here illegally is because the jails are too full. Better bring in more illegals.
Caravans are groups of migrants fleeing Honduras, Guatemala, and elsewhere who are making their way across Mexico together, not separately, to avoid, they've already got
the protest down. Look at that. We've got signs and we've got drums. We've already figured out the protest. They're going to fit right in New York and LA. They'll fit right in Washington, D.C. David Hogg is right now sitting back with a couple of the pussy hat compadres saying, you know what, let's get these guys sized up. I want to see pussy hats on every single one of these people. Let's just keep the march going. When they march over the border, let's clear a path and we'll march them straight into LA. Let's march them straight to Washington. We can let's book our next anti-gun violence rally now, and then in a month's time, the march should have reached Washington, and it will just all be, you know, nice and synced up, and it'll be completely natural, completely like all of our protests are, just grassroots people who care about America.
Are groups of migrants fleeing Honduras, Guatemala, and elsewhere who are making their way across Mexico together, not separately.
Lots of singing, lots of happiness.
Being preyed on. The nuclear option is getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate.
Just a little tip for the boffins down at CNN. Don't talk about people fleeing poverty, hunger, and political violence and then show them smiling and playing music.
Separately, to avoid, they say, being preyed on.
They're avoiding being preyed on by dancing in the streets and singing cheerful songs from their home country.
The nuclear option is getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate.
I know when I want to fend off attackers, what I do is break out into a Broadway tune. that sends them running.
So the minority party, Democrats, currently could no longer block legislation. So with that out of the way, here's the next tweet, also on Easter morning. Quote, Mexico is doing very little, if not nothing,
Buckley,
at
thanks for
stopping
joining
people
us.
from flowing into Mexico through their southern border and then into the U.S. They laugh at our dumb immigration laws. They must stop the big drug and people flows, or I will stop their cash cow NAFTA need wall. The president followed that a few moments later with this. These big flows of people are...
It never ceases to amaze me. We hate Donald Trump tweeting. We love talking about Donald Trump's tweets. Like, Donald Trump tweeting is the most awful thing a president has ever done. Let's dedicate the next 6 fucking hours to it, right? Let's go over each tweet and break it down meticulously and analyze it. And we'll bring in a whole panel of experts to talk about the tweets and why they're damaging to democracy and why they're wrong. These people would have nothing to talk about if Donald Trump didn't tweet. Nothing.
We're all trying to take advantage of DACA. They want in on the act. The president continued today with 4 more tweets.
4 more tweets.
Also surrounded by kids at the White House Easter egg roll. In response to a question, the president said this about DACA kids.
The Democrats have really let them down. They've really let them down. They had this
Easter egg roll. That's now a racist term, just letting you know.
great opportunity. The Democrats have really let them down. It's a shame. And now people are taking advantage of DACA, and that's a shame. It should have never happened.
Well, keeping him honest, what the president neglects to say is that his own executive action rescinding the program precipitated all of this. He also neglected to mention that he has at times signaled he's open to virtually any compromise whatsoever on immigration. Listen.
Yes, and you also told us that families would get torn apart and mothers would be ripped out of their beds in the middle of the night and separated from children who would then be wandering the streets aimlessly when it was rescinded, Anderson.
This group comes back, hopefully with an agreement. This group and others from the Senate, from the House, comes back with an agreement. I'm signing it. I mean, I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it because I have a lot of confidence in the people in this room that you're going to come out with something really
He had a lot of confidence that nobody was going to present anything to him, I think.
good.
So in the space of a little less than 3 months, the president has gone from being eager to sign just about anything to a Twitter rant about just about everything, and very quickly a factually inaccurate rant. Not one single new immigrant can actually take advantage of DACA, as the president claims, unless they come here by a time machine. It's, of course, limited to people who have lived here continuously since June of 2007.
Right.
Mexico is taking efforts to control its southern border. That began 4 years ago. Now, you can argue it's certainly not enough, but not that it doesn't exist. And it's hard to see what ending the Senate filibuster...
Yeah, it's like you can argue that they're not doing enough, but you can't say that they're not trying. Like this is just an extension of the everybody gets an award day at school. It's like, good on you, Mexico. Good job. Thanks for trying. Thanks for trying. I mean, the previous article we read, it was like, yeah, they're now negotiating with the people to grant them asylum in the United States. The Mexican government is, but they're really trying hard to keep them out. So hard. Good on you, Mexico. You keep on trying.
Pulling out of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, has to do with anything except perhaps that they either reflect the views of his harder line advisors, certain Fox News
like
anchors,
Breitbart.
his own harder line impulses and or personal beefs. So sad that the Department of Justice and the FBI are slow walking or even not giving the unredacted documents requested by Congress.
Thank you for the
An embarrassment to our country, the president tweeted. He also said this. So funny to watch fake news networks among the most dishonest groups of people I have ever
he said
dealt
fake
with
news again.
criticize Sinclair Broadcasting for being biased. Sinclair is far superior to CNN and even more fake NBC, which is a total joke. The president also attacked Amazon, apparently because
now who's
Jeff
triggered,
Bezos
Anderson?
Also owns the Washington Post. He also mentioned what an honor it was to host the annual Easter egg roll, but surprisingly, or perhaps thankfully, had nothing to say about the bunny. More now on a president on the attack from CNN's Pamela Brown, who joins us from the White House tonight. So, do we know why
Pamela.
the president is in attack mode?
Well, there could be a few reasons here, Anderson. We're told by sources that he's certainly feeling the heat when it comes to immigration. As you pointed out, he spent the 3-day weekend in Mar-a-Lago surrounded by a parade of allies and hardliners on immigration, particularly Judge Jeanine Pirro and Sean Hannity, who were reminding the president that, look, the midterms are coming.
Yes, not wanting a porous border, wanting control of your own border, as is your sovereign right as a citizen of the country that you're living in, is now a hardline stance. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? Ladies and gentlemen, you're now hardliners. The brown shirt is in the mail. Although I would argue once again, perhaps in earnest, that you should be welcoming the people streaming across the border because they obviously want to be part of the white supremacist system that is full of white privilege, that oppresses minorities, that hates Muslims and hates blacks. I mean, they're your brothers. Why else would they be coming to America if they weren't Nazis, right?
Coming up and told him that basically that this could hurt his party if he can't tout success in
Mississippi
building
burning. Thanks
the
for joining
border
us.
wall that is on top of the
Joe
local
Biden was in the
criticism
bunny
from
suit,
Ann
says
Coulter
Buckley.
that the president has been acutely aware of, that he was reminded of over the weekend.
He was
We're
reminded
told
of.
that the president was already frustrated that there has been sort of a lack of progress in his view on building the border wall. He felt like he was cornered in signing the omnibus bill with very little funding for the wall. All of this was exasperated with reports on Fox News about these caravans of Central Americans trying to
see again, it's just if the reports weren't on Fox News, then nobody would know about the caravan and there wouldn't be a problem. There would be no caravan if Fox News didn't report it. He was inspired by those reports on Fox News that there's a caravan, quote unquote, coming to America. That's why he's acting. Yes, there are no people tracking movements of people throughout Central America. There's nobody. Aren't you pleased to know, ladies and gentlemen, American citizens, aren't you happy to know that there is nobody in government at all? Yeah, in his view. Exactly, Kimmy. There is nobody in the government at all that is watching the border. It's just Trump in his view watching Fox News. That's where all these ideas come from. Yep. That's the reality here on Keeping 'Em Honest with Anderson Cooper. There's nobody in the American government system at all. The feds, the intelligence community, nothing. Nobody is keeping track of movements of people through Central America heading for the US border. You can sleep easy. It's all just coming from reports on Fox News that Donald Trump, in his view, thinks something's going on. No, he doesn't. He only gets all of his quote-unquote news from Fox. There's nobody. Trump lives in an igloo with the door sealed shut, like the opening at the front. He's in a snowed-in igloo, and the only thing in the igloo with him is a television and a quarter pounder from McDonald's. And he just watches Fox News. He doesn't get any info from anybody else, and whatever they say, he runs with, in his view.
the U.S. And so, as we see, this is spilling out on Twitter after he was sort of
and Twitter,
reminded
and he's
of
got
all of this
he's got
over
a
the
phone
weekend
obviously
by
for
these
his
allies.
rage
But
tweeting.
it isn't just on the immigration issue, as you pointed out. It's a myriad of topics the president is touching on, including Amazon, and NAFTA, and Mexico. His own Justice Department today. Some may say that, look, it's because he has lost some of his moderating forces in the White House, including Hope Hicks, the former communications director who left last week. And this is the first week that the president is without her by his side. She was seen as...
See, because some people, again, Donald Trump doesn't really do anything. It's all up to Fox News and other people in the White House, you see, because Hope Hicks has left, the communications director has left. Now Donald Trump is going to kick the shit out of Mexicans or something. Now Donald Trump has gone full Hitler because Hope Hicks isn't working there anymore. And because on Fox News, that fake news propaganda arm of the Trump administration, they reported on a mass of people coming to the Mexican-American border. So without Hope Hicks there to say, Donald, I don't think it's a good idea to engage the military on the border, without that moderating voice, he stormed into the Oval Office and got out the board where you can move the troops around, like the war simulator. Maybe he was playing PUBG all night. Donald Trump was up eating McDonald's, playing PUBG, and he got up in the morning, went to the Oval Office. Hope Hicks wasn't there to calm him down because he's obviously erratic and dark and dangerous. And he said, let's get the military involved. Let's get them down there to that border. I feel like playing war today.
Sort of a daughter to the president and someone who was a moderating voice. But even when she was here by his side, he still went through these sort of fits of fury. So I think really at the bottom line here,
Fits
Anderson,
of fury.
This is just the president being the president.
Yeah, she was. David, again.
It's obviously not the...
David, with all due respect, you're forgetting the way we operate here. Remember, the people on the border it's illegal for them to stop people coming over the border. It's not illegal for people to illegally come over the border. 2 weeks ago, yes, she was a dumb bimbo. But today, when we need her, she's the most intelligent, moderating voice who keeps Trump in check and stops him from going full Hitler. She's like a daughter to him. She's incredibly smart and accomplished. She's a moderating voice. That's the way we work here. That's the way it has to be in order for us to keep coming on and doing this night after night on CNN. It's the only way it works.
First time, though, that the president has gone after multiple groups in just one day.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at his Twitter feed, it appears that the primary purpose, or the way he views it primarily, is to go after people, go after groups. It's really
he just goes after groups.
For him, the way that he communicates with people in the outside world, which always makes it more curious when he doesn't go after people or groups that you think he would go after, such as perhaps Vladimir Putin,
maybe,
such as Stormy Daniels. It calls even more attention when he doesn't go after those people, because of the fact that he so regularly uses it to kind of go into attack mode on issues that are top of mind for him, Anderson.
Pam Brown, appreciate it. Thanks very much, Pam. Some perspective now from CNN political commentator Ryan Lizza, as well as CNN political analyst Molly Ball. Thanks both for being with us.
Molly Ball.
Should anyone be surprised at this
I recognize this guy
that
on the
president
left.
goes down to Mar-a-Lago,
really
hangs
good.
out with people from Fox News, and then goes on a hard right tear on Twitter?
That's a Stelter-esque leading question right there. Do you think it's a coincidence that Donald Trump spends the weekend with people from Fox News and then goes on a hard right tear?
Sure, thanks very much, Pam. Some perspective now from CNN
like that hard right Nazi fascist type known as Janine Pirro, for example.
political commentator Ryan Lizza, as well as CNN political analyst Molly Ball. Thanks both for being with us. Ryan, should anyone be surprised at this point that the president goes down to Mar-a-Lago, hangs out with people from Fox News, and then goes on a hard right tear on Twitter, which, by the way, it seems like most people on Capitol Hill...
A hard right tear on Twitter. What were the tweets again? There's a caravan of people coming to the border. This isn't right. The Democrats want open borders. That's now hard right. That's a hard right tear on Twitter. Hey, doesn't Twitter censor people when they're hard right? If that was legitimately hard right, then that would violate Twitter's user guidelines, I think. Why weren't his tweets censored? We treat everyone equally here on Twitter.
Just ignore now.
No, I don't think we should be surprised at all. As Pamela said, this is Trump being Trump. I mean,
Trump being Trump.
This
a
is
hard right tear on
who,
Twitter.
in his 70s, is not going to change.
He's
And
too old to
the
change.
accumulation of the staffing changes at the White House have been to take off some of
This is someone that's not going to. He's in his 70s. He's not going to change his Twitter habits.
the guardrail, some of the restraints that he previously had. Let's be honest, it's not like they were
Anger quotes,
serious
scare
guardrails
quotes.
or restraints previously.
Rage tweeting.
And he loves this platform. He loves the fact that any thought that pops into his head can be immediately disseminated to his
Mississippi
people. And
Bernie
he's
says, "I'd like to
very
hard
easily
right
worked
Cooper
up
boy."
on certain issues, especially immigration. He's been very worked up about the omnibus bill that he claims he didn't want to sign, and that it had no funding for his number one priority, this wall.
This wall.
I mean, not only that, the funding that it did had said it could not be used for anything but see-through fencing. So it was very easy for him to get worked up by what's on the circulating in conservative media right now, which is dejection about his immigration policies not passing.
Conservative
And
media.
so this is classic Trump. We're going to be having the same conversation, Anderson,
Yep.
a year from now.
Yep.
If he's,
You've been having
assuming
the
he's
same
still in
conversation
office.
for a
This
year
is who
already.
he
Why
is,
stop
and all
now?
this sort of- yeah, good.
You've been saying Donald Trump's tweets are evil and it's dark and depressing and it's all chaos for a year. Why stop now? At least this guy's honest. He says, Anderson, we're going to be having the same conversation in a year from now. I fucking believe it. I don't see any shift at all from CNN. You'd be mad if you expected one.
Yeah, Molly, I wonder how worried do you think he is about the base? I talked to Chris Ruddy from Newsmax. We're going to play that in our next hour. Who was down in Mar-a-Lago as well, who kind of poo-pooed the notion that being surrounded by folks from Fox News, that he's getting this message that he needs to be fearful of being too soft on immigration, that he's not too soft on immigration. But do you think there is truth to that? The idea that people are delivering the message to him that people in your base are starting to wonder about where you are in immigration?
Well, that's clearly the message he's getting from somewhere, and you do see it popping up here and there in conservative media, which I think is really interesting because up to this point, conservative media has really been an amen chorus for whatever it is that Trump decides to do. And if he were to decide, if he were to decide that the border wall wasn't such a good idea, they would just find a way to justify that and explain it and why it was a good thing. So it is very interesting to see conservative media holding Trump accountable for some of his promises, particularly.
But hang on a minute. A second ago, we just agreed with Anderson Cooper when he said he met with the people from quote-unquote conservative media, otherwise known as the fascist party. He met with the fascists and the bigots and the evil jackboot-wearing, goose-stepping comrades from Fox News. And he met with them at Mar-a-Lago, had a little bit of a dinner with Janine Pirro, and then went on a hard-right Twitter tirade, according to Anderson. And she's like, yep. And now she's like, it's refreshing to see the conservative media now questioning Donald Trump. It's like, hang on, I thought they just gave him the idea in the first place 2 minutes ago. That's how fluent facts are here. Truth, facts, opinion. More fluent than gender, believe it or not. And that's a scientific fact.
Immigration, which was such a signature issue for him. It's hard to blame him for being frustrated. The achievements of his first year in office were achievements for the Republican Congress. They were tax cuts and judges. Those weren't the things that Trump really feels in his gut and really campaigned on, in his view, to the Trump.
Breaking news. CNN panelist understands what Trump feels in his gut.
Base. And so you see him getting restless, wanting to do tariffs,
That's like the ultimate feelings over facts argument. Not only am I using feelings to justify my position, I'm using feelings to explain yours. Donald Trump's doing this because of the feelings in his gut. I know this because I feel it too.
About immigration, and as Ryan said, having fewer moderating
like Professor
influences
X
around
from the
him.
X-Men.
And I think we in Washington know that Congress doesn't do anything in even-numbered years. But if you're Joe Sixpack, that doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. Why can't the Congress keep going, even though there's an election many months from now? So I think part of that, you can't really blame Trump for being annoyed.
Yeah, Ryan, I guess the bigger question is whether the president really understands things like what DACA is. He says big flows of people are trying to get into the U.S.
He doesn't understand anything, Anderson. You understand
DACA obviously doesn't apply to people who arrived after 2007. So,
No.
A, what is he talking about there? And even last week, Thursday, we were reporting on, he made a speech in which he talked about...
We already established that he has nobody working in government whatsoever that can, track people moving through countries on their way to the American border. We already established that the only reason he sent National Guards to the southern border is because something was reported on Fox News. We know that already, Anderson. Come on.
And he tweeted about this as well. He even tweeted out a picture of fencing on the border that he said at the beginning of building the wall, when in fact we went down there and it's basically just rehabbing existing fencing that was put up under the Bush administration.
Yeah, in the omnibus there was no money for his wall. It specifically said...
because what we need to do, because in order for that to be true, right, we're building a new wall, we have to leave the old falling apart wall and not touch it. We can't repair it, because if we're repairing the old wall first and then building from that, then that means we're not building the wall. We have to leave the old parts of the wall there as an artifact. Let's make it a national treasure. We'll say this was George W. Bush's immigration solution right here, and we'll put it in a little cask so nobody can touch it and get a piece of it, like the Berlin Wall, for example. And then we'll have the barbed wire fence next to it and say this was Obama's contribution to the southern wall. Isn't it pretty? Yes, you can pin your little hope badge on it, hope and change for a better wall, perhaps, maybe. And then you can have the rest of the wall. But if you make any adjustments to the existing wall, this proves that Donald Trump is not building a new wall. Because we went down there, we found it, we saw with our own eyes, Anderson. Well, not we, somebody did. It was reported on CNN. I didn't go down there. That desert sand does terrible things to my complexion.
It wasn't allowed to be built. And look, his tweets were sort of hodgepodge of facts and fiction about immigration policy. Sometimes he talks about Mexico having this very, very tough immigration policy, which it actually does. I mean, in 2014, they changed the law in Mexico because of the crisis on the southern border there, and they're fairly aggressive about deporting people from Central America, something that Trump sometimes points out. Now he's sort of arguing that...
That's not true. Philly said anybody can just walk into Mexico, no problem. He did it. Philly walked into Mexico without a passport, no problemo. No problemo, muchacho. This guy on CNN, this is obviously fake news. He's saying that Mexico has very strict immigration policies, border policies. No, that can't be true. That can't be true. Philly walked in there without a passport, no worries. Therefore, fake news.
They're letting all these people through. And a couple points on DACA. One, of course, President Trump ended the program. It doesn't exist right now. And even if it did exist, it would not necessarily mean that anyone crossing the border would be eligible for it. And then he also made this point about if he had 51 votes in the Senate, he could pass what he wanted on immigration. That's not true either. The immigration bill that went through the Senate didn't even clear 51 votes, so that's not quite right either. So a lot of errors in his tweets over the weekend and today.
Yes. That's what you get with those triggered rage tweetings. You never know what you're going to get. Thanks for clearing that up, Anderson. Fantastic stuff.
Bye.